Obviously, an exciting, hard-fought game. Credit to Detroit. That team is in no way reflected by its record. They're a talented team. They play really hard. They obviously made a lot of shots tonight. I think as a coach, you'd always rather learn lessons after a win than a loss. I think for the majority of the game, our communication was very poor defensively. That led to breakdowns in coverages as well as not locating shooters. Bojan's a heck of a player. He got off 15 threes tonight. I think 2 games ago against Miami, Duncan Robinson, who played 32 minutes, only got off 5. I think we had massive slippage in our communication and recognition of personnel. The team did stick with it. Like, we didn't lose our heads. We continued to play on the offensive end. A lot of shots were made in this game by both teams. I thought we did a good job attacking and getting to the free throw line. The end of regulation, again, another lesson to be learned. It's something that we've worked on a good amount this year. It's something that we've watched film on. But this is also a moment where when the emotion is super high and the building's going crazy, it's easy to lose focus on the strategy part. And obviously we would have liked to have fouled when Alec Burks ran the ball up the court right around mid-court when he and Colin made contact with each other. It doesn't mean that Alec didn't make an amazing shot. Like, it was a really hard shot, but we shouldn't even let him get that shot off. And our guys recognize that right after it happens. But this is a part of learning how to win and learning how to become a really good team. I think the thing I was most impressed with was after that moment, you come back to the bench, they all know what they should have done because it's something that we've worked on. But they were able to refocus and then play a good overtime, which is not easy to do. This is a hard game to play for a lot of reasons. The last game of a little homestand before we go on a long trip is never easy. I'm just proud of the guys and their effort. A lot of guys contributed, and we were able to dig out a win.
Those moments, like fouling up 3 at the end, like when you work on those, do you work on that a lot, like training camp and preseason, or is that something that, like, you hit on throughout the season? I'm just wondering, kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, we work on it live at the beginning of the year, training camp, when we're having like really full go practices. We watch film with the team on end of game situations. Not all of them are ours. I think there's a lot to be learned from things that go on around the league. There's concepts that we talk about, but again, like, it all makes sense in a quiet film room like this. Like, if we put the film up behind me right now, it would all make sense. But you make a big 3 and there's 4 seconds left and the whole building's going crazy and everybody's scrambling around trying to find their matchups and figure out what's happening. Those are learning moments for our team. We're trying to become a really good team that wins consistently. And with that comes, situational basketball and winning in close games. That's what the best teams do. The game against Dallas was amazing, but because we played really well and the game went in our way, especially early in the fourth quarter, there wasn't a lot of thinking that came into the end of the game when you're tired and the pressure's there and the emotion of the game and the building is getting like very heightened. So, obviously I'm happy that we get to bounce back in overtime and, dig out a win and learn that lesson now as opposed to losing the game and then it feels twice as bad.
Somebody played 35 minutes and his playing time has been growing here. You've been given more responsibility. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing from him that you're doing this?
Yeah, Simo is becoming a really solid two-way player. I think his reputation when he came to the NBA was he was a skilled offensive player. The thing that stood out to us, or has continued to stand out to us, is his athleticism, his length. He's able to make plays on the ball defensively. He's able to recover and get back into play around the basket and contest shots. We've put him on a lot of matchups. Sort of his defensive coming out party was probably those games against New Orleans when he got to guard Brandon Ingram. Simo has not been given anything. His role is clearly now very different than it was when he first got here, and he's made it hard to not play him, because it's not just about shooting, it's not just about spacing. He does dirty work for us. He makes winning plays for us throughout the game, and so he's earning all these minutes. He's playing really, really solid basketball for us.
The lack of the foul notwithstanding, what goes through your head when you've got kind of a closing sequence at the end of regulation like we had tonight, where JC hits a three and Bogey answers and Lauri hits a three and Brooks answers, and it's just like seemingly one huge shot after another?
Yeah, I think this is what makes the NBA special, the skill level of the players. Very marginal mistakes are exposed by tremendous talent. JC, that play we ran, Lauri cut, didn't get it. The second option, JC executed great, got the ball, set a screen, shot a pocket three, which was beautiful, made it. We got on the other end. The defense was executed pretty well. Wish we'd gotten the rebound. Ball goes out of bounds. Did a good job switching the initial pick and roll. Ball ends up with Livers. Walker blocks it. And then again, it's like those moments where a play happens. Now your brain's scrambled. And it's like, what are we doing? And then Walker is half a step low. And he actually tried to contest, even though he started too far back. Bogey shot it really high to get it over his hand and made a great shot. It's hard as a coach in those moments to stay like on the next thing, because when that shot goes in, you're deflated too, like, oh God. But then you have to pivot to the next action. So we call timeout, executed well. Lauri made the three. That play was not necessarily designed for Lauri to shoot a three. And so at the end of the game, the timeouts are short. So you want to talk through things like, hey, they have no timeouts. So if we miss, they're going to be running it at us. We've got to get back, show a crowd, try to locate Bogey. Okay. We didn't have time to talk about, like, if we score a 2, this is what's going to happen. If we score a 3, this is what's going to happen. So, there's a lot of things to be communicated. This is where, as a coach, you always kick yourself, could I have handled that 60 seconds differently? Could I have drawn our play and talked about multiple defensive scenarios? I don't know. But that's what I'll be driving home thinking about, is there things that I could have communicated better in that moment? Because really that play in a tie game, it wasn't designed for Lauri to shoot a 3. It was designed to create some indecision. I figured my best guess was that they would handle the switch decently, and Jordan would get to play downhill versus Bogey. They got caught up on the switch, and credit to Jordan, he made the right read. 2 guys are on him, threw it back to Lauri, shoots a 3. So yeah, it's hard to get everything out, and that's where the learning on the off days and practices and training camp, so that some things don't have to be said. But I'll always take responsibility for those moments. I'm the coach of the team, and I'm always trying to figure out if there's different or better ways to communicate in those moments, especially when you get those 60-second chunks to speak to the team, because when it starts going like this and the crowd's going crazy, they can't hear anything I'm saying. So managing those timeouts is of massive importance.
He hasn't talked about much, but can you speak a little about George and the challenges? 9 of his last 10. He deserves some love.
He does. George is annoying, but he deserves some love. He doesn't let me yell at the refs as much as I want. Because I actually use George a lot for was that a foul? Because you don't want to lose credibility and just be kicking and screaming about every play, and you're wrong. But yeah, George, he studies it hard. He watches every challenge from around the league. He's trying to figure out what's being overturned, what's not. He knows the rule book better than anybody on our team, knows the rule book way better than I do, for sure. I have the utmost trust in George. He's having to make really quick split-second decisions. There's sometimes he doesn't have a good angle, and so he'll just tell me, like, I can't see it. And then the Jumbotron replay comes up, and it's a little bit, those things happen fast. But yeah, he's doing a really good job managing it. The first one is so important. Like, everybody got caught up in, you have 2 challenges. Like, yeah, only if you win the first one. So he's done a really good job of being disciplined, understand the types of plays we're trying to challenge. Like, he and I talk about that a lot, just so we don't have to have full-on conversations in those moments. Like, is this the type of play that we're trying to challenge and overturn? Walker seems to be getting a weird whistle at the rim. And so it's George and the players, because George can see things, but players can feel things. And so George, what do you see? Walker, did you hit him? And he's like, I think I got the ball. So yeah, George is the man. Keep it rolling.
When and how does someone like George get that job?
Well, first of all, no one wants that job.
Yes.
Like, if you ask George, he would say, I would gladly give that job to anybody else. It's a high-pressure, weird job that almost can only go bad. Because not only does he catch grief from me, and I've known George since my first year in San Antonio, so he's a very good friend of mine as well, which helps because he knows that I don't hate him.
Yeah.
But the players are on him too.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, George, you should have challenged that. Like, that wasn't so he's getting a lot of grief. It really just comes down to, like, you look at the staff and you figure out what everybody's responsibilities are during the game. George does a ton of work for us analytically, and in the game live, there's not a ton of that. Like, there's a couple of resources to use, but it's hard to get all that stuff in real time, like in an actionable way. And so George drew the short straw, and he's the challenge guy. But he's doing a fantastic job, and I mean, he really does work hard at it. Like, he studies it constantly. He'll show me plays. He shows our staff plays. He actually does a good job of, like, asking the refs at halftime and things about why certain things were officiated the way they were, like what the rule is. Like, I know he wishes he could go back on the John Collins basket interference against Miami, because Duncan actually grabbed the net on the way through, which was hard to see in real time. Like, he wasn't sure what the rule was on that. So, yeah, he does a great job, but I promise you that if I offered him to trade it to somebody else, he would gladly give that job up.
I'm curious, it seems like you guys have won a few challenges the way you lost the Kevin Durant one. Did that, teach you guys how that was getting ruled at all?
I don't know. I mean, we talked about that play, and then we tried to not talk about that play because it was sensitive. Yeah, I mean, George is the one that does all the learning. He does a great job of explaining things to me, but I really do have full trust in George. Like, I wish I could take, like, the refs sometimes will say, like, hey, good challenge. And I'll be like, no, that's a good challenge by him. Like, I just look and get green light, thumbs up, thumbs down, because it happens so fast and I don't have a replay.
So Jordan has been obviously fantastic since he came back from injury. He started the season off below his standard the last few years. What's been the difference since he's been back? Another 31-point game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's done a good job of kind of just trusting the game. I think it's really a culmination of kind of how our team's playing. I think everybody trusts that when they give the ball up, that everybody else is going to continue to try to make the right play. I think early in the year we were a pretty anxious team on the offensive end. Like, everybody was trying to make things happen too early. There wasn't a ton of trust early in the year on, like, hey, if I give this up, it's going to come back to me. So I think it's, Jordan's done a good job. I think when he was injured, our team did sort of make a pivot in terms of how they were playing. And Jordan will be the first to tell you, like, he saw that, he recognized it, he was thrilled by it, and he wanted to just come back and not disrupt the rhythm and kind of catch the wave, if that makes sense. So yeah, he's been tremendous. It's obviously a huge boost for us when he comes off the bench and is able to change the tempo of the game.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.